What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Don't Count Your Calories. First off, thank you everyone for reviewing our show, rating us, and listening and watching. Because of you guys, we've ranked top 100 in both the United States and the UAE for relationship podcast. Going from there, just a couple of topics we're going to talk about today is going to be American parenting versus Albanian/immigrant parenting. I guess you could say Western parenting versus non-Western parenting, let's say.
Not coming from the U.S.,
Yeah.
basically.
Before we get to all that, we have some news, I guess, for ourselves. We've just recently came back from visiting Thailand. I'm sure you guys may have seen it on our Instagram page with our food reviews, our 7-Eleven Thailand reviews, and all that. And we also got engaged in Thailand.
Yes, we did.
We also found out some other news in Thailand while we were over there.
Yeah,
and,
but we'll let you guys know that in a later episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of fun news that happened while we were away. It was such a beautiful trip. We were there for a little bit over a week.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks, like 11
days. We got
days.
to go to a lot of the different islands there. They were so beautiful. The food was amazing. Highly recommend to go to Thailand if you have not been before.
Definitely one of my top destinations that we've been to so far.
100%.
But anyway, to follow more of our travels and our journey into food and all of that, just follow our Instagram and our TikTok at Don't Count Your Calories. We always try to post something with our travels, with different types of foods we're eating. So not only can you pay attention to our podcast and all of our advice and what we think about relationships, you can also see where we're going and what we're doing. So
perfect.
So let's go on from there.
Yeah.
Let's get right into the American versus Albanian parenting, which, American can also mean British and all that stuff, because I feel like that's more of the same. But
like Western culture. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Eastern
European culture, or just any other culture that isn't considered like American or British.
Yeah.
But even so, I still think those can have differing ways of parenting, differing experiences.
The first thing that you'll notice, especially with like Albanian families, is that the kids tend to stay within the home a lot longer. It's not this idea of the moment you turn 18, you got to leave. And it's in these American families and Western families, you see that often. You're like, oh, I can't wait till my kid turns 18 so he can get the fuck out.
Yeah.
That's usually...
Every American parent, I feel like, is like that. They're just waiting until their kids turn 18 to be able to just be like, all right, now you're going to college, see you. Now you get no money.
Exactly.
Or...
Exactly.
I don't know.
Or you do, but at the same time, whatever.
You still get
if your
an
parents
allowance.
are in that place to give you the money. But I think this in itself has an underlying meaning. I think it's a societal thing where now we can get into like a touch of conspiracy, let's say. Basically, the idea here is when you turn 18 and you get kicked out of the house, what you're actually doing to your kid and what's happening to you as a kid at 18 is you're entering the market straight away. So what you're doing is you're immediately at 18 years old worried about paying the bills. So when you have the bills to pay that early, what you have to do is take on all these odd jobs and take on all these other ways to make income, because now you're chasing bills.
Yeah.
So the moment you turn 18,
rent, you mean?
Pay rent or whatever, rent, obviously, electric bills, food, everything. So now you get into the mode of, now I constantly need to chase a payment. When you start that young chasing a payment, you enter the economy, and now you're providing into the economy. So for the country-wise, money is circulating more because constantly you're chasing bills. And a lot of people from 18 till they die, they never stop chasing bills.
Yeah. You're saying in the American society, that's really what
in the American early society, it's this idea of get people in the workforce earlier.
Yeah.
Because the earlier they start chasing bills, the sooner we can get them into the rat race.
Yeah.
And as we know, a lot of people never escape that. So you're constantly on the verge of chasing a bill, where to a point where you never get out of that. A huge amount of people just never get out of that.
Yeah.
Whereas go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and with your family and how a lot of people even are being in UAE, you'll see kids living with their parents for much longer after high school. They're even still living there in college and after college.
Right.
And they don't feel this stress of having to immediately get into the workforce. They can figure out what they want to do. Where if you are a privileged American and if you come from a privileged family that gives you the opportunity to go to college and not have to take out student loans, you're not as in debt to that. You can absolutely figure out what you still want to do, but you're still conforming to the societal norm of high school, college, and then afterwards going into generally a corporate job. So it really still binds you to that like rat race kind of society where I feel like even when we go back home, your cousin who's like my age, like 26 or 27, he's still living with your parents and with his parents.
Yeah.
So it's normal in that way, and it wouldn't even be weird, where if I was still living with my parents back in the States, it's not that it would be weird, it's just more, it's definitely not normal. Like most people are living alone or living with a roommate or something like that. It's just like, it might just be a little bit like, why are you doing that?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But yeah, in Albanian parents, with Albanian parents, it's more like, where are you going? Like, why are you leaving? Like,
Yeah,
what's
why
the
would
point?
you leave? You
Like,
don't
why
want
would you
them to
leave?
leave,
Like, yeah, why would you
honestly.
leave? Like, unless like you're basically in a relationship and then you're moving on to make your own family. Like a lot of people don't leave their house until it's like, all right, now I'm building my own family, and then that's when you leave. And like you said, it gives you more of that freedom. It's just the concept of let's say your mom, your dad were working, you're working, whatever. All that money is coming to one household, and then that one household has more. Just has more. So therefore, you have that extra bit of freedom to decide, all right, what steps you're going to take. You're not pressured into making a decision. You have a little bit of extra freedom. Now, granted, you do see people that overstay other spectrum of it, but in general, I think the idea of 18 get out, it's there's no age to it. It's more of where are you in life to where
can you even afford to get out?
Right, exactly.
And it's just interesting. I feel like something that I really want to bring up is when it comes to an American family versus a not American family, is growing up, we had completely different experiences when it came to cooking. And I know a lot of American families were really big in the kitchen, and you got to see your parents really enjoy cooking and baking and going to the grocery store, all of these things. But for me, it was definitely a little bit different. Both of my parents are just like quintessential American parents. And honestly, I never really saw my mom cook. I don't think my mom dislikes cooking. I don't think she knows how to cook, or she knew how to cook. Anytime she would see me making something, even as simple as like a grilled cheese, she would be like, wow, this is crazy. And our diets, like growing up, were absolutely insane. It was like boxed food, 100-calorie packs, like lean cuisine meals, Breyers.
When you told me about lean cuisine, I was like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
I was like, that's disgusting.
And after a certain while, I just remember completely rebelling against her food and her cooking because I just couldn't take it anymore. And my poor father, the meals that my mom would feed him every night were just kind of despicable. It should be considered jail food. I feel so bad saying this, but it was definitely, my parents had this dollar amount to every meal, and I don't think that they realized that if you spend a little bit more time preparing the meals, that it would actually be the same amount as just buying a $5 lean cuisine meal, you know? So she would feed him, typical dinner for my father would be those packaged salads, the plastic ones. She would take that, like a romaine, and throw a few cherry tomatoes on it. She wouldn't even cut them up. And then she would do the Kraft Thousand Island dressing. That would be his appetizer every single night. My father never complained, complained.
Just ate it all up.
Yeah, ate it all up, every last bit. And she would serve it to him in a paper bowl because she didn't want to do the dishes.
Oh my gosh.
It's a red flag if every time you go into someone's house, their sink is just always clean. Like, do you cook? No. I never had a dirty sink in my house. And we never used the oven either. We used to just store pans and pots that we used.
It was just storage.
It was just storage, the oven.
Oh my gosh.
For dinner, she would serve him spaghetti and meatball lean cuisine. Yeah, or like a meatloaf lean cuisine.
That's
like,
nasty.
Disgusting.
That's nasty.
And then
kind of like school lunch, like worse than school lunch.
Worse
than school lunch.
Once I started, like, I would say in high school and middle school, going out to lunch with other people and going to my friends' houses for dinners and things like that, I really started to rebel, and I basically told my mom I wouldn't be eating that food. because the only one that I was okay with for the microwavable meals were the pizza. So I would just be like, all right, fine, you can give me like a cheese pizza, like I'll take
cheese
it.
pizza.
So bad.
Ugh.
And then for dessert, it was usually the Dole fruit cups.
Oh my god, and
Yeah.
like in that fucking
In the
syrup,
syrup.
and like the
Yeah.
nasty syrup.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This was like two people coming from a time where cholesterol and sodium were like the death of
Indian
diets.
cuisine is filled with sodium.
Exactly, but it's low calorie.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So that was their mindset.
Remind you, your dad's like from Virginia.
Yeah.
So it's that like Virginia, white America type of cuisine, which is essentially where people make fun of an unseasoned chicken type of fucking.
No, it's
Yeah.
like really, really unfortunate. I sometimes feel like it's trauma what I experienced when it came to food. I literally had no idea how to cook until I got into college and I started cooking with my friends and they would teach me how to make recipes.
Yeah.
I used to make jokes when I was in college. People would be like, "Oh, can you cook?" And I was like, "I could make a really good cereal."
And it was, you're
Like,
dead ass.
But the fact that they not grew up, I mean, that was like their standard and like they never complained about it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was out of laziness, but they just never cooked. I've never seen my dad cook. I don't even think he would know what to make if
Even
he
if he
were to
started,
cook.
yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely an interesting environment when it came to diets and food. It was definitely a household that was very strict about calories, calorie counting, very
Simply
unhealthy.
just eating for energy,
Yeah,
just to stay alive.
Kind
like,
of.
Not to enjoy it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Albanian
Oh my
families
God!
are
I should
completely
tell
different.
the story about the bagel situation on the plane.
Oh god, that's fucking disgusting.
This
too.
is insane. So, growing up, every time we
One's
would
Jewish family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to stereotype, but
Yeah, we're an American Jewish family, grew up in New York City, right in like Midtown kind of area. And we loved bagel sandwiches, like bagels with the schmears, like lox spread, cream cheese. My father really liked chopped liver.
ugh.
Yeah, and whitefish. Yeah.
Oh,
So
two
did my
gross
mom.
fucking things
Yeah.
to put out of all the things to put in a bagel. Out of all the things
Yeah.
to put in a bagel, it's like, I usually look at those and I'm like, who the fuck would ever put that? That
Talk
now I
about
know.
sodium. By the way, they would also scoop out the bagel. So I never
save
experienced.
a little bit of carbs.
Yeah, exactly. But pack on the sodium that they were so
Ugh.
afraid of with the bagel spreads.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Every time we would go on
Chocolate liver.
vacation, my mom would go to the bagel store. Essa Bagel was like right across the street from us. We loved the people there. And she would get 3 bagel sandwiches with the spreads in them. For me, she would get the cream cheese, my mom would get the lox spread, and my dad would usually get the chopped liver. And mind you, scooped out and not toasted. I don't think she would ever toast it. Just very simple. And the thing is also, my mom never got the spreads on the side. It was always within the sandwiches, and then she would save them throughout the week and eat those. Long story short, when we would go on the airplanes, every time we would go, she would take through TSA a big Ziploc bag of 3 bagels. Doesn't matter if it was 6 a.m.
Chopped liver.
Yeah.
And you told me that they would freeze it the night before. Like,
Yeah.
just freeze the fucking.
Oh, they would put it in the fridge.
Oh, put a chopped liver and fucking whitefish bagel in the fridge before getting on a flight because
Yeah.
God forbid you spend some money on the airport
Yeah,
on the
oh my God.
extra expensive food.
If I
But
were,
out of all the
if I
and
were to
opening it up in the
spend-
plane.
That's what I'm saying.
So mind you, all right. So like let's put this into a whole big picture. You're buying the bagel like at night. Let's say the bagel place is closed, so you have to buy it probably about 7 o'clock. Let's say.
Yeah.
8 o'clock. So you're buying a white fish and fucking chopped liver filled bagel at 7 o'clock. Your flight, let's say, is 6 a.m. So it has to sit in the fridge from 7 till about 3 or 4 because you have to get to the airport at least 2 hours early.
Yeah.
So 3, let's say 3, you take it out. So now from 3 o'clock, you get to the airport, you get through security at 4. You don't get on the plane till about 5:30.
Yeah.
So now they're taking off, and now it's 6:30.
Babe, this
So
is
for
nothing.
12 hours, that bagel's just sitting there. And now
It's warm now.
now it's warm, and the white fish is fucking warm. And now your mom and your dad are opening up the chopped liver and white fish bagels.
In economy.
In fucking economy in front of everybody.
The three of us.
The stank that must have happened at that on those flights.
I used to look around.
I'm surprised nobody got food poisoning.
Yeah. No. This was, by the way, this was nothing. One day for those sandwiches to be sitting there. Usually my mom would, like I said, keep them throughout the week. So she would have she would maybe get like 6 bagels.
It sounds like child abuse.
Yeah. No, like for immigrant families, would you imagine?
What? This is like jokes that that immigrant families make about American families, but we don't know 100% if they're real or not.
Yeah.
We just heard, we heard of the unseasoned stuff and whatever, and we just think it's a joke. But this is like really the truth.
Oh, I've told you that we didn't have salt in the house. We had pepper.
Just pepper.
We didn't have salt. We didn't have garlic. We didn't have any of these seasonings that
God.
like we use now. My parents, I mean, they don't cook. I guess what was the use to have the salt? But I remember asking my mom when I was in high school, can we buy salt? And she said no.
She said no salt.
Yeah.
No, you just take the chicken. She's not cooking the chicken. She's getting pre-made anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But that brings me to a point where I went to a barbecue once. A friend of mine, he was dating this girl, and they were like a straight up super American family, let's say.
Yeah.
And he invites me to a barbecue. So I get there, I'm excited. Barbecue, fucking, obviously, I see the chicken coming in, the burger patties and all this shit. And I'm like, fucking, obviously excited. And this is the first time I'm going into their house. I take the chicken on a skewer, I bite into it. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? There's no flavor at all. And it looks good because it's like chicken on a skewer. And I look at my boy, and he's like, I know, bro. I'm like, yeah, why is there... He's like, they don't put any fucking seasoning. Up until that moment, I thought that no seasoning was a joke. I thought it was just like this, like a stereotype joke. You know what I mean? I just thought it was a regular stereotype joke that people make. That's when I realized, oh, this joke and this stereotype comes from a real fucking place.
Yeah.
I was fucking disappointed. Now my plate is full of everything. I'm like, I can't fucking eat any of this. There's no. I was like, if I knew, I would at least brought some hot sauce in my pocket and fucking put it on the. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
I was like,
I will say a lot of barbecues I had went to when I was a kid, I don't have vivid memories of the food ever being good. And at least the standards weren't there for me to know whether or not if it was actually good.
Yeah.
I didn't really grow
it's
up
like
with
straight
flavor.
from a fucking package to a grill.
Yes, like Costco or something like that.
Nasty.
But the thing is I will say a lot of white people like that, maybe like the house that you had went to, usually we will not cook our own food. We will go and get the pre-made food and pretend that we made it. We'll go to Citarella, let's say.
I think that's the white American population. I think in the South, they definitely season their meat
Yes,
and shit like that. They
yes.
definitely, but the fucking Northeast, no, not at all.
We're eating out.
Yeah.
We're getting
eating
the
out
lobster
fucking
rolls.
like,
Yeah, it's an
You
interesting.
just said lobster roll.
Yeah, I'm getting the Maine lobster rolls, loving it. But that's another thing is like, taste is like really subjective, because something that would be really delicious to like my mom or my dad, to me, would just be like, how on earth do you like this?
Yeah.
Chopped liver?
But I think it's subjective if you don't try. You know what I'm saying? Once you take yourself out of the box and you try all these different things, then you understand what's really untasty.
Oh
like
my
granted,
God.
like obviously some things are like cultural and whatever.
Yeah.
But once you try different cuisines, but like going back to the American Albanian thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like in my family, my brother was cooking since he's 8. You know, he's at least making eggs. He was making eggs for my sister who was 3, 4, and he was 8 years old, and he was cooking her eggs and whatnot. And he would hide it. Oh no, I didn't make that. Like someone else made it using seasonings and all that.
So cute.
My sister now, she's like 13. She can cook you a whole meal from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Another thing though, in regards to immigrant and non-immigrant parents, is allowances. You know, so like the one thing that was like, when I had went to school, I think it was like high school. No, it was before high school. I go in and my friends are telling me like, oh yeah, I get an allowance, like $100 a week or whatever the case. I'm like, really? And like, yeah, just basically like get a standard. For me, it was like every dollar I had to ask, you know, every dollar, can I have $1? Can I have $5? And she was like, this one girl, she was like, oh yeah, I get $50, $70 a week. I was like, fuck, I should ask my dad. Let me go ask my dad for an allowance. So I was like, hey, Dad, like, kids in my school are like getting allowances. I feel like I should get an allowances. He's like, you should get an allowance. Oh, really? He said, well, I allow you to live in my house. Oh, I allow you to eat my food. guess what? I also allow you to sleep. He's like, allowance, there you go. I'm like, that's when I was like, okay, this is not happening for me. This is not gonna happen for me. I'm like,
That's
damn,
awesome.
those lucky bastards.
Yeah, that is so funny. No, it was not like that. I don't know. It depends on what kind of an American you are too. I definitely got an allowance growing up. I never had to like worry about that. Honestly, I got an allowance even throughout college. Like,
Damn.
I never.
I got something called a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get a
Not
job.
an allowance. It was like, you want money, you got to get a job.
Well, the thing is like, I obviously realized that was a very lucky situation that I was in, but that's the thing, I was having unpaid internships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was able to have the luxury also to have unpaid internships going through college, which I think is such bullshit. Like, how do you expect... There should no longer be unpaid internships. That's absolutely crazy to me.
Anyway, let's not deviate to the unpaid internships part, but yeah.
Anyway, so I was doing the unpaid internships, and obviously my mom would always really advocate for me. So I was probably getting like $100 a week, and if I wanted more, I would text her and figure out some sort of a way they could put a little $20, let me go out tonight, like...
I would always do odd things to make money, but at around 13, it was the breaking point where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a job. And at that moment in time, I lied about like my age, and I got a job at a pizza place getting paid cash.
Yeah.
But it was because my friends were going out to the movies, and I'm asking my dad for $30 or something like that, or $40 to go. And man, it must have took an hour to get this fucking money. He was like, why do you need it? Where are you going? Who are you going with? All right, yeah, cool, all this. He's like, do you know how much it costs in this country to raise a kid? And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, I'm just trying to go to the movies, you know? And he's like, he made me sign, I think he has it to this day, he made me sign a contract that was like, he had saw a documentary where it was like, it takes in America at this time $200,000 or something to raise a kid up to like age 16 or something. So he made me sign a contract that I would pay him back $200,000 and $40 because that $40 I needed for the movie. So he's like, this is another 40 on top of the 200,000 I'm going to spend. My dad's accent is not that rough, but maybe it is.
It sounds like that for sure.
So he's like, so he wrote a contract. I will pay my father, and then he wrote his name, and then back 200,000 plus the $40 for the movies, and then I had to sign it at the bottom in order to get my $40. I'm pretty sure he still has that paper saved to this day, and he's waiting for his $200,000 and $40 payback.
Yeah,
he's like,
for sure.
He's just chilling right now. He's like, one day, I'm gonna put his ass to court.
Yeah, for real. But it's different because if you were to say if like you're going out with a girl or something like that, I'm sure he would just hand you the money.
Oh yeah, facts.
Yeah. I feel like that's...
as an Albanian guy, like when Albanians have a boy as a kid, yeah, he gets everything. Everybody knows that. The boys usually they get everything. The girls usually the parents are more strict with the girls than they are with the boys. But yeah, with my dad it was like, if I'm going out with this girl, here you go, my son. Yeah. You know, my son, he's going out. Yes, here you go, take the money.
That is so funny.
But yeah, if it was just to do something stupid, it would be a problem. But yeah, at that time around like 13, I worked at the pizza place. I was making cash, and I was like, all right, don't have to fucking ask this guy for money anymore. Thank God. You know, thank God I don't have to ask him for money.
I'd feel the same way if I were you too. At a certain point, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
like you got to make some money. Got to do something, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Any other things that we can talk about in regards to American versus Albanian parenting?
I wanted to mention
besides
the fact...
beating your kids?
Yeah, no. that too.
Foreigners definitely beat their kids.
Yeah. I definitely didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, you were definitely yelling at your parents, weren't you?
For sure.
Yeah, if I yelled, whew.
Yeah.
Wasn't yelling again a second time, let me tell you.
Definitely talking back at times, for sure. But it was not good. Like, I look back on those and, like, I really regret it. But that's the thing is, like, there was no, like, there wasn't, like, that kind of parenting. Like, it was very, like, you know, go to school, get good grades, and then we'll be a little lenient with you. But another thing that maybe is American and not foreign is tutoring. I don't know if you ever had tutors when you were, like, growing up, but...
Yeah, I had tutors. It was my mom and my dad. And then my mom, she had a special form of tutoring. It was like if she told you, for example, when I was learning the times tables, I think I was 5 or 6, it was like, let's say she said 8 times 8 multiple times, and I was like, kept forgetting.
Yeah.
By the 3rd time, are you an idiot?
Yeah.
You said this 3 times. 64, 64. You're like, oh my
Wow.
God, it's 64. To this day, I remember it. 8 times
Yeah.
8, 64. Because
I remember
of,
learning
remember that smack back in the day.
Yeah, see, I never experienced that. I think like immediately when I started doing bad or anything in school, my mom just went straight to the tutors. I was getting tutors, especially in high school. I mean, I was getting tutored basically throughout like my childhood education. If I wasn't doing well in a class, my mom would get me a tutor. Yeah, it would be like $100 a day. Crazy. Could be like for 2 hours, $100 easily. Like the amount of money that she spent, like they were putting me in private school, like then having tutors basically every single day just to get me to do my homework. Like I don't.
No, usually like the tutors for homework is wild to me, because usually when the reports cards came out, especially like in the schools that I went to, like Queens and whatnot, I had a lot of foreign kids I had like a lot of foreigners like in my classes. So everyone that knew was like did not do good this marking period. It was like, holy shit, we got to run home and get the mail before our parents. Because if my dad got the mail and that shit said a bad grade, oh man, it was like hell was coming. Hell was coming.
Yeah, I remember that too. But also the issue I think is my parents were paying for private school, so maybe my mom was like, I would rather pay her to get the tutors so she can get an A on her homework. So the private school will then be worth it paying all of this much to get her into a good school. But I went to a good school, but I definitely didn't get into the best school. But you know what I'm saying. Another thing I wanted to mention was, remember that time that we had asked my dad if he wanted to get like Albanian food or something like that? And he like didn't even know what it was. He like Googled it.
Oh my God.
He Googled the food. Like, interesting.
Yeah, he started looking at pictures of the food. Yeah.
Like, never seen.
The funniest part was like when my mom met up with like your dad and whatnot, and they're like, oh, we figured we'd pick an Italian spot because it's closer to where they're from. They just picked the closest country, close to Albania. They're like, oh yeah, it must be all the same shit. Like
they don't even know. They think everything that isn't American food or sushi is exotic. That's so interesting. Like, or they're just not interested in it at all. It's really weird.
Yeah, the spices, the parenting techniques, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely like the daughter versus son thing is definitely a thing in foreign parents. And yeah, like usually it's just much more connected. Like family-wise, it stays connected for a lot longer. That's definitely one thing, especially with Albanians. Albanians, like, they will, like, you already know, my aunts, my uncles, everybody is so close to each other. Like in Albanian families, we stay close to like our second cousins and whatever the case. Like our families are so huge because it's not just like our unit, me, my parents, and my siblings. It's like me, my parents, my siblings, my parents, brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, their kids, my parents' cousins, and their kids. And so you're constantly around all different families. I don't even know how to like call in English, how to call certain cousins. Like I don't know if it's like first cousin twice removed or some bullshit. I don't know how to say it in English, but there's so many cousins you've met. I mean, you've met how many of my cousins, and you're like, you can't even keep track, you know?
No, there's a lot.
I have cousins all over the world, and I'm like, oh, my cousin, which cousin? You know, it's like 100 cousins.
It's also very different for a born and bred American family. Like, we just don't have, or you're very lucky if you have connections like that with family. I grew up in a very small family. We would see our cousins every once in a while, maybe 2-3 times a year. It just wasn't connected like that. And even for you, like we were talking about earlier, like your mom would fly you to Kosovo every single summer to stay with your aunt and your uncle. Yeah,
I would stay with my family all summer, 2 months, 3 months. You're like in high school or not even.
Yeah.
And you just go to Kosovo and you stay in multiple different families' houses.
Like,
and then you'd call and you'd kind of have to, you'd have to strategically stay at every uncle's or aunt's place a certain amount of time, otherwise they'd get offended. Like, why didn't you stay at ours, you know? Versus like an American family, you're like, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out. You
exactly. Like coming unannounced or just, I could never imagine my mom having me stay with my cousins in Massachusetts for 2 months. I couldn't even imagine the idea of that. After 2 days, it would be enough for them. Like, there's just not a connection like that. It's really, really interesting.
That's why Albanian weddings, you know, it's like minimum 500 people, because it's like the 100 people that you know, and then the other 400 that you had to invite that you have no idea. And they're like, oh, I remember you since you were this small. And you're like, the amount of times you get that around the place is wild.
Yeah.
But with that being said, everyone, that's our episode on American versus foreign parenting, and just Americans versus foreigners in general.
In general.
Again, give us 5 stars on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on all your favorite platforms. Give us a nice review. That helps us with our analytics and with our algorithm type of shit. And also TikTok and Instagram. Don't count your calories. Follow us everywhere. Comment. We love to have a back and forth conversation about any of these topics that we're talking about. I love that we're seeing some of our friends commenting and talking to us about it.
Yeah.
It's nice. So thank you, and see you on the next episode.
See you.